Good evening, everyone. Here is Bruce Newman from Bruce Newman's Academy. Today, we're gonna receive our very special guest, Maurice Amdur, Psychic of the Stars, and we have this lovely opportunity today to have a conversation with Maurice about this topic, which is so popular, and I know that you enjoy it so much, which is past life regression. Maurice, good evening.
Be quiet, the pair of you. Stop it! Get in there. Sorry.
Was
My,
it a message which was addressed to the angels? Maurice, good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's funny, my dogs just saw a cat. They went mental. They're so funny. You know, I have a pair of dogs, and whatever they see, they think they're doing their job by barking like mad. It's enough to drive someone insane.
Would you agree that the consciousness would connect from body, mind, organism to another? And
I,
that,
I believe this. I think that we have a part of us, the higher self, which is constantly in the spirit world, if you want to call it that. And I believe that part of us is here on earth in what I see the human body a bit like a television receiver, a bit like a radio receiver. We are like a very complicated television, and our soul transmits to us through our brain. And I believe that on birth, the soul enters the body, a part of the soul enters the body and charges us up a bit like, I don't know, like a electrical boost. And then I believe when we pass on to the next existence or back where we came from, the soul leaves the body. Now, I also believe that we can connect with the more advanced part of ourself that is not limited by human form. So, you know, while we're alive on Earth as a human being, there's lots of wonderful benefits like food, swimming, breathing, animals, birds, warm, cold, swimming, love making, the feelings of love. But I think in the spirit realm, we exist more on an emotional level than on a physical one. I don't really believe that there's a physical side in the sense of bricks and mortar in the body on in the spirit realm. But I do believe the emotions continue on as they did here on earth. So one would recognize other souls in their soul circle, and one would be part of the spirit world at the same time as they're part of the what we'll call the human world. And excuse me one second. Stop it. Get inside. Now, move. I'm working here. Stop it. Sorry, my dogs are very playful today. So what I'm saying is that I believe very strongly in the spirit world. And believe very strongly that we can interact with the spirit world, but while we're here, we're very much limited to the human form and the limitations of the human brain. Now, remember, human beings only use a total of between 5 and 10% of brain capacity in their lifetime. We also, by the way, only use to 5 to 10% of our body's physical strength. That's why sometimes when someone has a car accident or something, they're able to open the door of a car that weighs a couple of tons and take their baby out like a young skinny woman, because in that split second she accesses that we don't understand. And it's the same with the spirit realm. As a medium myself, on occasion, I don't do mediumship 24 hours a day, but sometimes I've had spirit come in my mind, and not spirit to do with me, to do with clients. And so spirit contact is quite weird because you feel them sort of taking you over and they start talking to you in your head. Now, when we look at the human form, as I say, it's like a television set receiving a signal. When people get Alzheimer's or other things, the body or any ailment, the body can't work properly, but the signal's still there. So often, when people are very ill, um, after they recover, they say, "Oh, I heard everything you said, and I could feel you and see you." And then the relative will say something like, "Well, your eyes were closed. You were completely gone. You were in a coma." "Oh no, I saw you come and go. I saw everything. I could tell you what clothes you were wearing." Do you get it? So there is definitely there's the physical element, which is what we understand, the 3D and our senses, touch, sight, smell, etc., and emotions and all the feelings. But then there's the spirit realm that we don't understand. I think scientists more and more are starting to realize quite what there is, and they admit recently, science, that there's no actual death, because what is continues but in another form, because they don't really understand where the energy comes from exactly or where it goes to. We call it a soul. Now I also believe that the soul develops at different levels, and however developed you are will denote which star sign you come in as, what numerological life force you come in as, what sort of life questions and lessons you're going to experience. And then you'll live out a lifetime to sort of, for want of a better way of putting it, earn enough brownie points through pain, suffering, or good times to then go to the next level of the soul's journey. And eventually, when the soul has evolved enough, usually through quite a lot of experiences of pain as well as joy, then eventually you'd get to live in what we might call, or exist in what we might call, the heavenly experience. But I think as a human, and even dogs, cats, whatever, I think we have to come and go, come and go, come and go until we're evolved enough that we would become something that would be suitable to exist in that superior realm. So I'm even of the belief of reincarnation, or the return of the soul through multiple lifetimes in order to become perfected, and in order to learn enough uh, to go where we really, the ultimate goal is, which was some kind of nirvana, some kind of heaven, some kind of paradise. But it may not be a physical paradise. For example, some religions talk about sex. Well, there isn't any sex in heaven because we don't have a physical body. And of course, sex is a biological procreation tool for all of the animals on Earth. They procreate to continue the species. But sex, even though we enjoy it and it does involve love, is not something in the supernatural spiritual realm. It's only in the physical realm. It doesn't go there. Now, it doesn't mean there wouldn't be some kind of incredible love and emotional closeness, but I really don't believe there's any physical side to the heavenly experience. And I do believe that what happens is, for example, I'm a man in this life, or I was a male, and I'm of the belief that in the last life, just before this, I was a female. I won't go into how I know that, but I do know that. And this time I'm a male, born into a certain family with certain circumstances. And I've been through lots of life lessons. And this time they've opened me up psychically so I can maybe understand things in a different way. But I wouldn't say my life has been without troubles or suffering. And I would say to you that I'm not sure that even someone who's the president or the queen or a billionaire is necessarily spiritually on a higher or lower level, because everybody's here to learn. So, for example, if you come into this life and you have yachts, aeroplanes, and billions, it doesn't necessarily mean on the spiritual level that you're evolving or growing. It may, in fact, mean that you're on a very low level spiritually. It could be the reverse, of course, but remember, life is extremely short. I don't think people actually realize quite how short it is. You and I are coming of a certain age now, so we're aware of the speed at which this illusion of a life moves forward. It's a one-way train. It's a one-way ticket without any kind of map or diagram or explanation. You arrive, boy or girl. I'm not getting into the gender thing, but you arrive out of your mother in a room somewhere. You're born. You're here, right? And they slap you on the bottom as a reminder that life ain't going to be easy. And then you grow up, and suddenly you're 1 minute you're this little baby sucking on the nipple, but 20 years later you're a full-grown person, male or female, and 20 turns into 40, 40 turns into 60, 60 turns into 80 if you're lucky, then it might go to 90, and then you're gone. No matter what you achieve or do, you're in and out so fast. I mean, I've watched all of my heroes pass away from childhood till now. That's every pop star. Well, there's still some that I like, but every pop star, every movie star, Margaret Thatcher, not that she was my hero, the Queen of England, they all die. Nobody's sticking around. So it's very important to get your soul and your lessons in order. Now, people come to me sometimes because they want to know what they were in their past life, right? And I
So,
believe,
Concerning this topic, you're
TLR.
assisting people to collect, connect, and log with their past lives.
I
Uh,
think everybody can. And I have had it done for myself and I've done it for clients. But what I was going to get to was sometimes when you do review the past lives, you find out very clearly why the person has certain issues in this current life. So, for example, let's imagine in your past life or even in this life, you were left as a child by your birth parents and put up for adoption. You might then have a negative opinion of yourself subconsciously that is ruining who you are because there's a pain level of rejection. So, for example, someone who's been rejected in their past life or this life would think they're not tall enough, not broad enough, don't have enough hair, have too much hair, don't like the eye color, might want to get Botox. They've got a thousand things they want to do because they have a body image problem caused by the emotional pain of being rejected in another life. When I lived in Hollywood, I got the opportunity to meet most of the supermodels, nearly all of the biggest stars in the world, and the pop stars and everyone. And what I found out is 99.9% of people despise themselves. I'm sorry to say that, and maybe not quite as solidly as I'm saying it, but they do. If you meet a supermodel, the first thing she's going to tell you is that inside she thinks she's ugly. Okay, if you meet a
would
billionaire,
you
the
say
first thing
that
they're
we
going to
could
tell you
make
is
some
they failed.
bridges? Some bridges could be built between past life regression and psychoanalysis
Yes,
in the way that when entering the gates of the animus, the collective unconscious mind, and eventually the individual unconscious mind, we can dig on that and we can delve in so far that we can reach some past incarnations and
yes,
log with some incarnatory problems, psychological problems, which doesn't belong to our incarnation, but to
correct.
some past incarnation.
I will go two ways on this. The first thing I want to tell you is I call it the ethereal energy pot, the library in the universe, which has a font of information, unlimited information on every subject that ever has been or ever will be, from nuclear fission to how to make a chocolate bar. Okay, so for example, when we learned how to make the wheel, it had actually been made before thousands of years ago. The other day, as a silly example, I didn't know this, and I don't know if you did either, but you know, 2,500 or 3,000 years ago in Greece, they had functioning flush toilets. That's a fully functional, plumbed toilet that you sat on, pooped, and it flushed away, just like we heard were invented in 1900. Okay? Now, the reason I bring this up is because in those past lives are incredible amounts of information and knowledge. A bit like that movie Highlander, where he's lived again and again and again. And of course, he knows more than one average life. But the thing is, we all do. Now, sometimes when you open a book, whoever you are, you're starting to read the book and you think, oh, I knew that. Oh, I know that. Oh, I've been there, but you haven't. You did in another life, right? Now, what we don't know, because we can't measure time in the true sense, we don't know if lives are forward or backward. We don't know if his time is linear or if you can pop in and out of different time frames. We don't know. So maybe there are lives in front of us that we've already lived or behind us. Maybe we've popped forward 500 years to another life, but we're in this life because we have to come back and fix what we messed up. Or we learn from previous lives and occasionally can remember parts of it. Have you ever been anywhere and thought, my God, I've been here before, but you really haven't? You know, deja
It did
vu?
happen, actually, yes, effectively. Once I was in Rome, front of a fountain or a monument. I guess it was some kind of a
Spanish
monument.
Steps by any chance?
Sorry?
The Spanish Steps at the bottom of the Spanish Steps is that
It
beautiful
wasn't the
fountain.
Spanish Steps. I guess it wasn't that far from Roma Termini. I was front of this monument. I felt there's energies going through my body,
Yeah,
and I felt clearly, oh my goodness, like I know this place, and I did have some experiences exactly here.
I believe you. So when we were kids, I remember getting that feeling occasionally, and my mother would make this joke saying, "Somebody's just walked across your grave." Now, I think everybody has had that feeling where you walk in somewhere and you get a sort of an odd, shaky, weird energy, thinking, "Oh, what's that?" And it's because it's something spiritual that we can't fully understand. What I could tell you is in my work, I have regressed people. The only regressions I don't believe in and feel that these practitioners are fake is when they turn around and sell a man who's a dustman in this life that he was Tutankhamun in the last one or the biggest movie star in the world. That's not real. What's real, unless of course there was that one instance where in a previous life you were a king, a queen, a dancer, a politician, who knows? The point is, though, stop it, you two. The point is, though, that in this life, what you need to know from a previous life would be what you're carrying that you're working through that's causing you some kind of physical or emotional block. You know, it explains something else as well. You know, prodigies, child prodigies, and one second. Child prodigies. That was my dogs. I've got to split them up. Child prodigies. They come in, they're 3 years of age, they go over to a piano and they play it better than anyone on earth. A child prodigy can do maths at the age of 2 that most scientists can't do. Now, my belief is that's knowledge from a previous life, or they're connected to the ethereal energy pot and they just draw down the energy. Now, I myself have been able in this incarnation to draw down information from what I call the ethereal energy pod. Advanced knowledge of specific things in my own life. I'll give you an example from a very long time ago. I always loved cars. I absolutely was fascinated by sports cars and cars. They were a huge interest of mine. And when I was in my very early 20s, I foresaw the whole of the classic car market where cars went mad and became automotive art. Before that, cars were just cars. A bit like years ago, watches just used to be watches. If you go back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was a Rolex, but nobody cared very much. A watch was a watch. Now, of course, we have a global situation of watch collecting and huge amounts of money for specific and rare watches. Well, back in the late 80s, globally, Ferraris, Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, etc., became automotive art. Now, I foresaw this market. The information came to me from somewhere else. I acted upon it and made a lot of
These
money.
necessarily come from this quantum physics theory, which is the theory of the block universe, considering that universe is not made of space, but made of time, and we're evolving on a map
I
in
think
two
there are two.
dimensions,
Mm,
and this map is made of time. And what's going to happen is already here, and the past is a memory of the future. But my question would be the following, Maurice.
mm,
When you're assisting someone to connect on a past life regression in one of your mysterious sessions,
mm.
what's happening? Is it a secret that
What I usually do, no, there's no secret. What I usually do is get them in a very relaxed state, get them to lie down, get them to close their eyes, get them to imagine, I won't go too much into it, but they're going up on a cloud. And when they eventually tell me they can feel the cloud under them and they're that relaxed and on the cloud, I ask them to come back down to earth from that cloud. And then I ask, where have you landed? Please look at your feet. All of this is done while they're in a very relaxed state. And usually someone will say, "Oh, my feet are in sand," or "My feet are in sandals," or I'm on an airplane," or "I'm wearing boots," or whatever it is that's being given to them. And then I'll say, try to find some kind of mirror and have a look at yourself, while they're in this state. And
my
usually they'll
goodness,
turn around in shock and say something like, "I don't understand this. It's a bit like quantum leap. I'm a man when they're a woman, or I'm a little girl, and I'm in Egypt, or I'm in the south of France, or whatever." And I just get people to look around, and basically, I've done this technique for years, on and off, and usually through this way of taking people back through their lives. Sorry, the news flashed up. Um, they find out who they were and where they were. Then what gets interesting is when they go into these past lives, they tend to find characters of people they know now, but in another spirit form. So, for example, in this life, your mother's your mother, but she could have been your wife, your father, your brother, your aunt, or your lawyer in another life. And so you recognize the soul, but it's in another form. So, for example, let's imagine you've got the most amazing dog that you love in this life. I certainly have, and we'll give this dog the name I don't know, Jumbo. Okay, so Jumbo's your dog in this life, and when you go and you do a retrospective look at previous lives, Jumbo turns up, but he turns out to have been your boss or your master or a king or your wife. Do you get it? The souls follow you around in a soul group. Also, different people come in and out of your life in this incarnation as a soul debt. So let me explain. You meet a woman, you fall in love, it breaks up. You were supposed to meet. Last time you hurt her, this time she hurts you. You get it? Here's another one. A rapist in this life goes and rapes a woman and brutally beats her in disgrace, okay? And he ends up being hung or whatever, it doesn't make any difference. But in a previous life, he might have been the raped because what goes around comes around. So everything that happens to you is for a reason. There are debts on your soul. When you're born, you come into this life with a huge bag over your shoulder, a bit like Father Christmas. And in that are all of the different elements that need to be corrected through this life experience. The Kabbalists call it the cocoon. It's basically your debts. So one debt might be that you're supposed to lose a finger. Another debt might be that you're supposed to get rich and lose it all. Another debt might be that you fall madly in love and your wife drops dead. Another debt might be you're supposed to be a movie star and you end up being a movie star, even though you're short, bald, fat, and ugly. Makes no difference. You're Danny DeVito, but you'll become the biggest star in the world because that's what's written, that's what's owed your soul, so you're unstoppable. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So let me prove a point.
I have a question for you. Did it
Yes,
happen during the sessions that some people could connect back with some previous incarnations?
For me, it happened. What happened was when I was first taken into regression, I found myself in another life and I found the characters from my current life. This was a totally different incarnation. I found them around me, but each character was nothing to do with who they were in this life, except I knew who they were. I could recognize their souls. So, at that time, I went about a relationship I was in, and I found out that my girlfriend had actually been my business partner as a male in another life. Do you get it? And so, but this was my own experience.
All right, I agree and understand this crossing, this interconnections of relationships from an incarnation to another, which would most likely rejoice all the fans and predictioners of twin flame connections.
Twin flame.
But my question was the following: what's about ancient civilizations? Can't we have some hints or insights of what happens before 10,000 years ago? I'm thinking about Atlantis.
I believe
I'm thinking about Hyperborea. I'm thinking about the Minera Islands.
Sumeria,
to connect, yeah.
Sumeria, Egypt. Let me go into this for a second. I personally believe that we have gone backwards, not forwards. I think a number of times planet Earth, where we exist right now,
is way more advanced.
Yes, I believe that we're catching up with where we once were before.
Technologically or spiritually speaking?
Both. I don't think we're particularly evolved spiritually. I think there's the odd person who is. But when people poke their head up and show their spirituality, because we are an ignorant species and we're all about greed, selfish behavior, I want, I need, I've got to have. So, for example, President Trump, who God has empowered.
No. Let's not speak about politics. I'm
politics.
stopping you right now. I would like to target you again on the direction of the ancient civilizations. And this topic is controversial enough.
I believe he's been here before. That's what I wanted
Did you have some experience during your sessions with some people which were connecting with some ancient incarnations
Yes.
evolving during, let's say, the time of Hyperborea.
I don't know about Hyperborea because I'm not going to. Okay, I had ancient Greece, I had the Middle East, I had China, um, I had ancient Sumeria. I found myself with someone on another planet that seemed to be superior than here. There's been lots of experiences, of course. Whether I understood them.
Someone in other planets.
Okay, what happened was I had a girl come and we went through about 5 lifetimes, and eventually she found herself somewhere else. And I asked her to describe it. And she explained that her body was floating and that she was much bigger and that she wasn't male or female. In fact, she was sort of intersex, and that she had sort of powers that she didn't understand. While she went back there, she could float, she could move, she could think herself in and out of different spaces. She could travel in the physical realm, but also the metaphysical realm. And we stayed there for quite a while in the session because it was fascinating. And she talked about how she could telepathically communicate with everyone and everything around her, and that she could think and something would come in front of us. So for example, in this life, let's imagine you wanted a cup of coffee. She could think a cup of coffee, and there it was in front of her without cooking it, without making it, without getting the cup. It just manifested. So what she had was not only a body that was totally different and intersex, it wasn't male or female, it was just its own thing. She could manifest or draw towards her in this incarnation anything she wanted. Also, the color spectrum, she couldn't explain it. She said that, it wasn't like blues, greens, purples, and yellows and whites. It was something else. But she couldn't, of course, tell me what the colors were. Do you get it? It was like a completely different space. So if you can imagine, a bit like, when you go in a freezer, it's cold, right? And if you go in the sun, it's hot. This was something like going into another temperature, but not hot, not cold. Do you get it? Something completely unheard of.
Would it
And
be an
this
incarnation
physical
in
world.
some parallel universe ruled by some other physical?
It was it was physical, but not as we understand it. So, for example, we're living, breathing human bodies in this life, and we're in the animal kingdom, and we've got reproduction. She was explaining that in that incarnation, she could think anything within reason, and that thing then
And she could
existed around
manifest.
her.
Was she able to describe the shape of her body?
Well, this was interesting because she said that she was much larger. She could feel that she was very big. Exactly what size, I don't know, but she said, I feel like I'm a whole swimming pool. Those were her exact words, meaning that she was substantial. And she said, but I can go and come, move and do what I like interdimensional. I could do anything I want. She said, in fact, when she was in that, she said, I wish I could go back and stay there because I liked it. But she said it was part of the evolution because as we move through lifetimes, in another one, she was like a male road sweeper. In another one, she was a servant to a king. In another one, she was like a Roman general. And in another one, she lived in a cave. Then she talked about another dimension that she was in where everything was kind of upside down. But we didn't get too much further because the session was only like an hour and a half, that particular session. But it was fascinating
That's
because it was
so fascinating,
so real
Maurice.
to her while she's talking. It was so real. And even in my own head, I started, maybe it was my imagination, but I
Would you
started,
allow us to make another session and continue on this very particular topic? Because
of course,
I guess we have something which is incredibly, incredibly mysterious. So, some people would be intrigued. I may uh, uh, um, go once more asking you some question about those ancient civilizations. I would like to remind to our audience that Maurice is at your disposal to assist you and help you to connect with some past life regression. Would you agree to get in contact by our with our audience, Maurice?
of course. And what I would like to say is that we can do past life regression, but also in any given session, I will also help them to see where they are, where they've been, and where they need to go to. But we may be able to cure one or two things that are really hurting a person by letting them review where that came from.
Absolutely.
Fabian,
This link
singer of
between
Lost.
between past life regressions and psychoanalysis sounds to me fascinating, and I may agree that we should absolutely delve on this way. There's so much to explore.
Yeah, I agree. All I wanted to say was the reason I was bringing up individuals, we won't name them anymore, but most individuals who reach a very high place in this life may have been in a low place in the last life, or in a few lifetimes ago, may have been a king, a queen, whatever. And that's why they feel the power as they arrive in this life, and they fear less than others. Have you ever seen a guy who's not good looking, but he's got every woman chasing him?
Very
It's
interesting.
he's got a power within him from another life experience, or a girl
Fulfilling.
that's not beautiful that every man wants, or someone who can sing unbelievably and the parts don't equal the sum of the outcome. This, I believe, it's like when you look at someone like Bach or Mozart or Beethoven or Trump or Roger Moore, whoever you want to pick.
We
It's
have a
not,
hint.
it's not just as simple as they were born in this life and they just got it all. I believe the soul earned some brownie points, carried forward knowledge from the past. Let's take Elon Musk as a silly example. We don't have to be political. He's
Unfortunately,
got
the time of
our lives
our
within.
show is ending.
Okay,
I'm quite impatient, and I'm looking forward to continue to delve on this direction.
whatever you
Thank
like.
you so much for your
Pleasure.
purpose. See you soon, and um, don't forget, trust yourself, be next level.